Welcome back to Stories of the Western Australian Goldfields. I'm Evie.
And I'm Jim. And today we've got a cracking tale from 1897 Coolgardie, a place where tempers flared, banners waved, and at least one priest had to play peacekeeper while men in orange sashes and swords tried not to poke each other's eyes out.
It all started with a plan by the local Orange Lodge to commemorate the Battle of the Boyne. That was a Protestant victory way back in 1690 in Ireland, but somehow it still had folks hot under the collar, 7,000 miles away and over 200 years later, in a dusty Goldfields town called Coolgardie.
Now, for those not up on their Irish history, this celebration didn't exactly scream peace and unity. And with a large Irish Catholic population in town, a parade of Orangemen with drums, banners and swords was about as welcome as a redback spider in your boot. The townsfolk saw the storm clouds brewing. A few thoughtful types asked Warden Finity to cancel the march before it got out of hand.
But Warden Finity said that much to his regret, he couldn't legally stop the procession. So, on Sunday afternoon, the 300-strong group of Orangemen gathered near the railway crossing, dressed to the nines in regalia, swords on hips, including a bearer who was to wave a big yellow banner at the head of the procession for the amusement of the 600 onlookers.
Everything seemed to be going to plan, until some of the onlookers decided they'd had enough and rushed the banner. One moment it was a parade. The next, it was Gladiator, Goldfields edition. Sticks, iron bars, and those harmless ceremonial swords suddenly didn't seem so ceremonial.
Instant chaos. The police jumped in, trying to calm things down. Father O'Dea, the local priest, was also in the crowd, doing his best to play referee, probably wondering if he should have brought holy water and a whistle. One constable, while shielding an Orangeman who'd been knocked down, was himself attacked with an iron bar. But he dodged it, grabbed a sword off another marcher, and laid out his attacker like he was auditioning for the next Shakespearean play.
Eventually, after much pushing, shouting, and a few bruised egos and faces, the Orangemen limped along Ford Street, band still playing, crowd still swelling. Things simmered down until they passed the site of Kennedy's Hotel, which had recently burned down, and all hell broke loose again.
The opposing factor, a lovely phrase meaning blokes with fists, launched another attack. Mounted police drew revolvers, swords were yeeted over the heads of the crowd, while sticks and fists flew in all directions. The foot police weren't mucking about either. Cuts, bruises, and one poor chap's cheek got slashed open during the melee.
But somehow, they made it to the Wesley Church. And even there, some hotheads tried to storm the building. Thankfully, Inspector Lodge and his backup drew the line at a church invasion. The doors held, the band played one last breathless tune, and the service finally got underway, for the crowd that had now increased by at least 200.
A few days later, the Kalgoorlie Miner ran an editorial, shaking its metaphorical head and asking, why in this new land should men quarrel over a battle fought 200 years ago and thousands of miles away? Fair question.
The local Coolgardie paper chimed in with a classic bit of old-timey outrage, accusing a prominent official of picking up a bit of road metal, wrapping it in a hanky, and turning it into a weapon. Apparently, many in the crowd came well stocked with tools of offence, strong enough to make a man oblivious to all temporal things. Translation: they were whacking each other senseless.
And what did the police do afterwards? Nothing. Nada. Not a single charge laid. Not even a please explain. Warden Finity said the whole thing was a big mistake, and everyone agreed to just pretend it didn't happen. The bruises faded. The swords and other captured belongings stayed at the police station. And funnily enough, there were no more Battle of the Boyne parades in Coolgardie ever again. Well, none that made it into the news at least.
So, there you have it. The story of the Great Coolgardie Riot of 1897. Proof that old grudges and sharp swords don't mix, especially in the middle of a gold rush town with a thirst for drama. Thanks for joining us on Stories of the Western Australian Goldfields. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the show and tell your mates, especially the ones who like stories of the Goldfields that did not make the official history books.
Until next time, keep the stories alive.